Hello, welcome to the training webinar for this week. I'm Dale Franks, and this week we are going to talk about the advanced reporting component. And that's really all we're going to talk about. We're not going to dive into detail about the type of reporting that you can do in Knowledge Views. The advanced reporting component should be available to almost all of you, certainly all of you that are here. It is not available if you are an on-premise customer and still use the old pre-2018 tiered license. So if you have a legacy tiered perpetual license and you're on-premise, the advanced reporting component is only available as an additional licensed component. Happily, if you are a subscription customer, on-premise or off, or a cloud customer, if you're a cloud customer, you're automatically a subscription customer, then you do have access to the advanced reporting component. And it is a great way of making attractive reports outside of the Knowledge View. So that's what we're going to talk about today, and it's probably going to take us the full 2 hours to discuss it. If you have any questions, please hit the Q&A button at the bottom of your Zoom screen, type your question in, and I will answer it as soon as I see it. Most of the time in Process Director, whenever we're doing reporting, we're really doing it for internal purposes. We're doing it so that we as process administrators can see how things are going, and we just want some quick reporting of all of the data that is included inside Process Director. And so for that, we generally use Knowledge Views. And the Knowledge View that we're going to use today is this one here, this Report K-View. I'm going to run it. It has 2,000 rows. So there's 1,000 form instances and 1,000 timeline instances that it's going to return. So it'll take a second to return it because it is a fairly large Knowledge View. And okay, well, here it is. It's running. It shows me all of the data I need to see. It shows me the name of all of my form instances. And like I said, there are 1,000 of them. So let's scroll down to timeline instances. We can see the name of our timeline instances. And there are some nice things about the Knowledge View. I can, if I want, just click on a timeline or a Knowledge View instance, and it will open up the appropriate form by default, although you can change this behavior in your Knowledge View. I probably should have pre-opened up this form so it was already compiled so we wouldn't sit here and stare at a blank screen for a while, but all I have to do in a Knowledge View is just click on the item and it pops open. So on a day-to-day basis, for our ability to manage processes, Knowledge Views are great. They're also great for quick and dirty reporting to end users, like show me all of, my processes, or show me all of the forms I can submit. And indeed, there's a workspace that does that. The user profile workspace has a couple of Knowledge Views that show me that. You've got your task list, which is, of course, a Knowledge View. Running processes, there aren't any on the system, but I've got this Knowledge View down here at the bottom, which is my content list search. And that's pretty great because I can just go in and do a quick search as long as I spell things correctly, and I can search for specific items on my system. Apparently, I use the word advanced a lot, so there's 59 items that get returned. So Knowledge Views are great for simple, interactive reporting. There is a little bit of a problem when I want to actually do formal reporting with Knowledge Views, and I think the Report K-View kind of illustrates that, because if I have 1,000 records in a report, or in this case, 2,000 records, it gets a little bit tedious. First of all, the design. You don't have any control over the design. You don't have any control over how it looks. There's no way to sort of concatenate things, to count the number of specific item types or what have you. There's no way to divide a knowledge view up into different sections. It's basically a big old Excel spreadsheet. And Excel spreadsheets are nice and they're useful and they're great for simple stuff. But for more advanced reporting, you want to have a couple of more tools in your pocket. For example, the one thing about a knowledge view is it only reports information that is already stored inside Process Director. In fact, it goes even further than that. It only stores information about object instances or object definitions that exist in Process Director. For most reporting purposes, that's great because that's what I want to see. Most of the time, I want to show a knowledge view that has a link to a form so that when a user clicks on it, it opens up the appropriate form. I might want to set my knowledge view so that if there is a task, there are none for any of these because they're already completed. But if there were a task, I might have my knowledge view set it to open it up in task context as if I was opening it up from a task list. And then I could complete my task without having to actually go to my task list to find the task. But it only shows me information from inside Process Director. Sometimes there is other information, perhaps related information, but it's not stored in Process Director. It comes from external data sources, or it comes from, and I guess we'd have to consider it in this context, an external data source, the internal user database where we store a lot of information. And of course, we might want our reports to be, attractive. And that's going to be really hard to do with a knowledge view. So the advanced reporting component provides us with many additional reporting capabilities that simply don't exist inside the built-in knowledge view. So we're going to cover the advanced reporting component, and we're going to cover the two major types of reports that you can create, because the nice thing about the advanced reporting component is that as long as you can connect to external data, you can not only report on the data from inside Process Director, you can report on data from any accessible external data source. And so the advanced reporting component technically could be a reporting system that you build for non-Process Director data, which is something you could never do with a knowledge view. So let's talk about the reporting component today, and we're going to have basically the same data. In fact, I went through yesterday and ensured that we have the same data for the two different types of advanced reports that we are going to create for this knowledge view. Let's take a look at that data. Part of it is this. When we create a report in Process Director, we have a choice of data sources. We'll talk about those choices in a little bit. But for right now, let's console ourselves with the idea that we can have two entirely different data sources. One is a knowledge view data source. And so this report KView is the knowledge view that we are going to use to report on this form and process timeline data. However, and there are many different reasons why you might do this, you can also use a data source that pulls items directly from the Process Director database, so that, or any external database, and you can report that way. For example, if you have a form definition, and on that form definition, you've gone into the Form SQL View tab of that form definition, and you've created a view for that form. Well, rather than creating a knowledge view report, you can create a data source report and use that view of that form to return the form instances directly from SQL Server without having to go through a knowledge view. That is going to perform a lot better. If you go back into our previous training videos, I have a training video on business value performance where we compare the performance of business values that are grabbing data from Process Director, from a knowledge view, from a form SQL view, from form instances, and we show various performance differences. And in pretty much every case, cutting out the middleman, in this case, a knowledge view, is going to provide significant and noticeable performance increases in terms of building your report and having it display, or because knowledge views are expensive in terms of resources. Knowledge views are very generic, which is to say, we don't know what you're going to ask for, right? When you go into a knowledge view definition, I don't know if you want to associate it with forms. I don't know if you're going to return form instances or timeline instances or form definitions or documents. I don't know what columns you're going to want, and I don't know how you're going to want to filter that data. You build all of that in the knowledge view, but what that means on the back end for a process director to return it from the database is a very, very complex SQL statement. So even if you only wanted to return one set of forms from one form definition, you only wanted to return form instances, you didn't want to filter them at all, well, we don't know that ahead of time. We have to build the big honkin' SQL statement that has to run as if you were going to do all sorts of complicated things, which means it has all of these very complex inner and outer joins. It takes a long time for it to run as opposed to just pulling data directly from the database. So the reporting component and our ability to use either the built-in views that already exist in Process Director, and there are several of them. In fact, if we go into the documentation for the product and we go to the database reference, there is a whole section here on internal views in Process Director. And there are several internal views that tell us about what's going on in terms of processes and tasks and users and task lists and just user reports. All of this data is there. It's built in to Process Director as a view, which means that we can report it using a data source report to just go ahead and grab this view and bring it out of the Process Director database. On top of that, of course, any time that you create a form instance, and when you go into the form instance, and I guess I should probably show you. So I have a form here. So let's go ahead and take a look at a form definition. On the form definition, you have the Form Data SQL View tab, and that Form Data SQL View tab enables you to create SQL views that return all of the data from all of the form instances, and you can access that directly in the database. Now, sometimes knowledge views are fine, especially if they're not going to be too large and you have a lot of data from all over the system that you want to return. You might want to create a report based on a knowledge view as well as a data source report. And we're going to take a look at how we would build both of those. So we've seen our knowledge view that we're going to use for one of the reports that we're going to build. And let's take a look at our data itself. And rather than look at it here, let's look at this KView business value, and we'll hit test query. Oh, this is not, oh, it's not set up. And I'll tell you why it's not set up. It's not set up because I imported it from an Excel spreadsheet. So let's look at the Excel spreadsheet. I should actually still have it on my system because I completely redid it yesterday so that the data we're looking at is a little bit different than the data we've seen in past webinars. And there it is, reportdata.xlsx. And this is the same data. It has all of our form instances. And if I scroll, halfway down on this Excel spreadsheet, scroll, we get into our timeline instances as well. So it's the same 2,000 records that our knowledge view returns. So we'll be seeing the same data today, but we're going to be accessing it in a different way. In this case, I've just gone ahead and imported the data directly in a spreadsheet. So it isn't directly linked up to our knowledge view, but I did want to ensure that we had the same data. And we'll just talk about the two different ways of accessing that data. So to build a report, we're just going to go into this build folder here, and we're just going to go ahead and create a report. So we'll go to create new, and we'll go to report. It was hard for me to find R because I'm unfamiliar with the English alphabet, apparently, but I did find it. So it's generating our report definition, taking a second to do so, but in the fullness of time, I'm sure we'll see it. And then we'll be able to begin configuring it. There we go. So we'll have our report name. We'll just call this first. We're going to build two reports here. And I think it would be confusing to build them side by side because there are some differences. And I think in the interest of time, I might not be able to fully build them here. Fortunately, I have them pre-built, and if we need to, we can go and take a look at them. But I'm going to call this Knology. We're just going to do this because it's going to be the easiest way. In fact, I'll just call this KView. So this report is going to be a KView report, and we're going to need to choose a report type. Now, the report types define what the size of the report page is going to be. And for different uses, we're going to have different types. So a dashboard report is going to be a little bit different than a portlet report, but the dashboard and the portlet report is smaller. They're basically designed to show up in somewhere in the UI. So if I create a dashboard in Process Director and I want to show a report in that dashboard, I would choose the dashboard type because it's going to give me a more square-ish report. It's going to be a little larger, so it can be expanded for the whole screen. Portlet, this is still here. I'm not entirely sure how useful it is at the current moment because with the brand new UI, we don't use portlets much. A few minutes ago, we saw the user profile, and it was split up into 3 portlets. And the portlet report is kind of sized to fit into one of those portlets. We don't use them as much anymore, although workspaces are still divided into portlets. So it still has some utility. So we don't really want to get rid of it. But we don't use them much. And quite frankly, when you're building reports, you probably don't build portlet reports or really even dashboard reports much. I would suspect that the order in which you would use them from least to most popular would be the portlet report, then the dashboard report, but most likely you're going to want a multi-page report. So what we're going to show in the multi-page report is basically a report that we can print out on, well, in America, 8.5 by 11-inch paper. For the rest of the world, A4 paper, which unfortunately is a little different measurement. When you pick multi-page, it is going to pick 8.5 by 11 as the default because we're Americans, and so that's we use the letter format instead of the A4 format, but multi-page is probably what you're going to choose. This will allow you to take a report like, for example, we're just about to show 2,000 rows of data. We're going to need a multi-page report for that. A portlet report or a dashboard report might be great if we are going to show some graphics. Now, we're not going to have time to get into the details of building infographics in the report generator. We're just not going to be able to do that. It is, first of all, the report generator is going to be complex enough for us to get through it here. Never mind trying to get into the separate feature of infographics, of which the advanced reporting component has a ton that you can use. And most of the time, if you're going to make a dashboard or a portlet report, you're going to want to use some sort of infographic. You're still going to need all the base data. You're still going to need to do all of the things that we're about to do to generate a text-based report with 2,000 rows. But until you begin generating what the actual report page looks like, all of the processes for building a report are going to be exactly the same. In our case, we're reporting many rows of data. We're not actually doing any infographics in this. So we're going to want a multi-page report because it's going to be a 70-page long report, and you're not going to be able to toss that into a dashboard as a single page report, because both the dashboard and the portlet style reports are single page reports. Although, here's the thing. Those are just formats to kind of make things convenient for you. You can show any type of report in a dashboard or in a portlet, or as we'll see at the end of the webinar, on a form. And so the type of report that you pick is for your convenience to just give you an initial page size for that report. And of course, the dashboard and portlet reports are single page reports. So you got to keep that in mind, that everything that you're going to want to show is going to need to fit on that one page. For a multi-page report, we're just going to have as many pages as we need. And like I said earlier, in this case, this is going to come out to 70 pages. On the Properties tab, I can actually go back in and change my report type from here. So if I picked the wrong report type, don't worry, you don't have to get rid of it. You can just go and change the report type. The two buttons at the top are buttons that are going to be useless for us to look at right now because we don't really have any configuration. This is a blank report. It doesn't do anything. It's just going to show me a blank page. Well, technically, it won't show me a blank page. It will show me a page with some content, all of which is largely useless. We can, in fact, go ahead and look at it right now. I mean, it will generate what is technically a report. There it is. There's my report. We have to associate data with it. We haven't done that. There are a couple of things that we can do here in terms of how the UI is going to look for our end users. So we can show or hide the report toolbar. I wouldn't recommend that. Show the export buttons, which I think I would recommend. Show the navigation buttons. Well, since we're about to generate a 70-page report, we really are going to need some navigation buttons to go through those 70 pages. A print button. Well, yeah, it's kind of cool to have a print button. Show view mode. That just is the view mode button to change the view mode, and show the zoom, which will enable us to zoom in and zoom out, which we are again going to want to use because the default zoom is pretty well zoomed into the page. So there are all these properties here, but I would say that you are never going to uncheck them in almost every case because you actually want them. So we're just gonna leave that as it is. There is this prompt for variables before running report. We actually can build that prompt in elsewhere. So we're not going to discuss that, but although we will discuss that a little bit later. And of course, the standard do not show this object in the items I can run knowledge view. Both of these are unchecked by default, as they should be. But if you don't want that report to show up in the items I can run, you can turn it off here. Now we have to get our data, and we can get our data in a couple of ways. We go to the Data Sources tab, and we have three methods of grabbing data: knowledge views, data sources, and database views. So if we go to database views, we can actually see all of the views that we have built in the internal database for Process Director. And when we look at the internal database, that also includes the internal user database. So we're actually seeing all of the views that I've built. For example, I have a cached form that also has a SQL view built on that cached form. So my data actually has a view that pulls the data from that form cache rather than the actual live form data. I've got these ones here at the top: BP process, process task, task user, etc. These are all of those built-in views that we just looked at a few moments ago that are built into the user database. So those are automatically accessible to you right here from database views. So there are many cases where database views is great. Now, We're not going to use that because I actually have a table of data that already exists in my database from that spreadsheet. Or we're going to use a knowledge view, and I guess this says KView, so I guess we're going to use a knowledge view here. There is the data sources, and we are going to use this in a few minutes. So we'll talk about this there, because this is where there is an enormous amount of power in terms of how we can pull reports and show them in Process Director, not just for Process Director data, but for any accessible data that exists anywhere in an accessible database. But for now, we're going to go for knowledge views, and this allows me to pick the knowledge view or knowledge views that I want in my report. One of the other things about the report component, or the advanced reporting component, unlike a knowledge view, where I can really only have one source of data, I can have multiple sources of data in a report. I could have 5, 6, 8, 10, 20, not sure what kind of comprehensible report gets built with that many data sources, but we could certainly do it. We're not confined to a single data source. So I could conceivably select different knowledge views to show in this report. Now, in this case, our report KView over here is the one that we want over on the left side of the screen. So that's the one we're going to use to create this report. So we're just going to go into our sample data by clicking the build button. We're going to go back and find report KView, and then we're going to click the add knowledge view button. And that's it. My data has been added. There is a button that enables me to view that knowledge view. Probably shouldn't have clicked that button because it shows me the definition, so I guess that's fine. But it will show me that knowledge view in a separate window if I want to review it. But I've got my data source. Great. Now, depending on what you're doing, you might need to go to the Variables tab, but we're going to talk about variables last, so we'll come back to that. For now, I have done sort of the two important things that are required to enable us to begin building our report. And that is, I have selected the report type, which is a multi-page report, and I have added a data source to this report. Now I have data on which I can report. So at this point, I can go back and begin designing my report. Now, because I just added that data source, I'm going to go ahead and hit the update menu item just to update my report, just to be sure that I've saved everything that I've made changes to, which basically is just my data source. But now I can go ahead and click the Design Report button. And clicking the Design Report button is what opens up the actual advanced reporting component. This is the designer where we're going to do all of our work. Now, a few minutes ago, we took a look at the report, and what we saw was the name KView, because that's the name I gave this report. I probably should have given it a more descriptive name, but the report name is now KView. And we saw this text here that says multi-page report template. Everything else, as you can see, was blank. This is where we're going to do our work. So let's talk about its user interface so that we know how we're going to use it. At the very top are the toolbars. The home toolbar is the standard one that we see. It's not the one where we're going to be doing most of our work, though. Most of our work is going to be done in the Insert toolbar, because this is where we need to go to insert all of the objects that make this report work. Those objects are called bands, and each band does different things. If you look at this report right now as it exists, the very, very top of the report, there's this green line at the top, and inside that line it says Report Title Band. Different types of bands show different data. So the report title band is a band that shows up once at the very beginning of the report, only shows up on the first page of the report, and all of the report's data comes below it. So we give you the report title band, but there are other types of bands. There's a page header band so that you can put a header at the top of every page. There's a page footer band to put information at the bottom of every page. Then there are group headers and group footers. Now we are going to use group headers and group footers to discriminate and to count the number of form instances and the number of timeline instances, and we're going to separate them up so that we're going to know when we look at the report what section has the report or the form instances, what section has the timeline instances, and we're going to throw in a group footer so that we can maintain a count of how many form and timeline instances there are. Big reveal, spoiler, there are 1,000 of each. So we're going to group this report by object type. So there are going to be two groups in our report: form instances and process timeline instances. Then we have a header band. Now, the header band is the band where we would generally put our column titles. And we're not going to have a footer band, or did I use a footer band? Now I can't remember whether I used a footer band or just a header band, but we're definitely going to need a header band. I don't think I put a footer band, but I do have a header band in because we're going to want to put in the labels for our columns in a header band. Then we have the data band. That is where the data in our report is actually going to show up. So we're going to be doing a lot of work here with those bands. There are some other components. There's a free text component. That's, in fact, what this is right here. This is just a text component. It's a text box, basically. I can toss in an image as well, similarly, by dropping it down on the report, and I can generate different types of charts: Gantt charts, bar charts, line charts, area charts, scatter charts. I got lots of choices here. I don't really have any chartable data that we can show, so we're just going to elide past charts. But I do have these other three items in addition to just the bands. But today we're basically going to go through the bands, and we're going to throw these bands on the report. I also have the ability to drop in some infographics, some geometric shape, and there's some other components. There are also some other cross bands. By the way, in bands, it is a drop down that shows me all of the different bands that I have available. But these are the most common ones. So these are the main bands, and these are the ones that we're going to confine ourselves to, but you can access them here. And of course, there are some special bands so that you can actually do cross tab reports with the reporting component. Again, the tyranny of time will prevent us from discussing that in any detail, but this is where we're going to do most of our work. There is a layout toolbar, which allows us to align objects, so we can select multiple objects and align them, or we can, each object is on its own layer, so we can bring some layers to the front, move some layers to the back. That won't be something that is really necessary today as we're just creating a text report, but you do have that ability. And then, of course, is the preview tab, which will just preview the report. This report still has no data, although it is going to reference the knowledge view, and it's going to run the knowledge view just to run this report, even though it's not actually reporting any data. Then finally, there's the file toolbar, which is basically where we're going to go to make any changes that we want to our report. There's also a couple of report wizards that we could go through, but we're not going to, because we're just going to build this thing from scratch, because I think that's I just think that is going to be better to know how to do than to just run the wizard. I will say the wizard makes your life a little easier. So now let's talk about the main part of the UI below the toolbars. On the left-hand side of the screen, there are two panes, a properties pane and a dictionary pane. We'll talk about the dictionary pane in a little bit. The properties pane is where we determine the look and feel of our report. This pane is dynamic. So look at the headings that we have here. We have page, page additional, columns, although none of these are really useful for us now because we don't have any data or any bands. But if I was to click on multi-page report template, this is going to change to text and text additional. And if I click on this image, it will change again. So this properties pane is dynamic. So whatever it is that I click on is what it is going to automatically show. So if I click on the page, then it's going to show me the page. If I click outside the page, it's going to show me a big report description and will allow me to make some changes in the report. Now, there's really nothing that you're going to want to change here except maybe, the report name, but you don't even really have to do that because we've got this BP report name, which we'll talk about in a minute, already built in, as well as BP report description and BP logo URL, which is our image. These are all variables. Our data and most of the manipulation that we're going to do with that data is all going to reside in the dictionary tab. The dictionary tab shows me all of the objects that are associated with the report. Most importantly, it's going to show me the data sources that I have for this report. Now, in this case, there's only one data source. So if I click on data source to expand it, it's going to say BP underscore KView. And then if I expand that, it's going to get me to report KView. And then if I expand it again, finally, it gives me the names of all of the columns that are in my knowledge view. Now, I want you to note that there are columns that exist here that are not actually displayed in the knowledge view, simply because knowledge views have a lot of hidden columns in them. And when we're looking at them from a UI perspective, there's some columns that we don't see. When we look at them from a data perspective, which is to say, in this case, we're actually pulling back the SQL that gets returned by the knowledge view, we're going to see some extra fields. However, the fields that we want are still here. The name, the created by, which, by the way, we don't even really need because they're all created by me. The object type and the path of each object. And those are really the only 4 fields that we're going to need for this report. These others, like the BP ID and the BP PID, that's the form ID, the GUID, that will be the process ID, GUID, the property URL, which is the URL property of the object. So it would return the URL. The second line, which should be the description of the object, which I don't think we care about in this particular case. The timeline instance ID, the URL of the task, which we could use to open it in task context, because we could actually put URLs on a report, by the way, just so that you know. And then we have the BP type and the BP view URL. Now, because we're using a knowledge view, there are some little quirks in how knowledge views work that you're going to need to be aware of. And even though it's not obvious, if you look at the object type field, each of these fields have a little icon right by them. For example, the created by field has a little ABC icon. And I know this is kind of hard to see, but unfortunately, I can't make the UI bigger. I can make the report bigger, but I can't make the UI bigger. So it has this little ABC icon. That means it's text. But I want you to notice the object type has a .0. That is a numeric icon. And in this case, it's just a general number. If you want to see integers, BP type actually is an integer field. And so it shows me 1, 2, 3. But this shows me .0. So this is a general numeric field. And this might be confusing for you. So we got to talk about what's happening in a knowledge view, because this is not what we're going to see when we do the data source side. It's already 1040. Ugh, the tyranny of time. Wow. If we look at our report KView and we just run it, and we look at the object type field, it says form instance. That sure looks like text to me. And in point of fact, it is text, but it's only text in the UI. We're fooling you here because the actual value that is getting returned is the enumerator which specifies form instances, which I believe is 16. I'd actually have to go back and look. It'll be obvious if we go and look at the other report, which one it is. And I have the other report prepped because I'm going to want to do some copying and pasting from it to make my life a little easier. So there's an actual number associated with this. And what's happening in the UI is we're showing you form instance because you're a human. And so you don't connect things via numbers. You like text. And so we're showing it to you. But that's not what's actually being returned in the knowledge view. And that's why this text here, or what we think of as text, the object type, is actually a numeric field. And we're gonna have to account for that when we build our report. So those are the main objects in the UI. Now we can begin to start building our report. The first thing that we're going to want to do is we're going to want to make some changes to this page. Now, as I said before, this is the letter size page, and you will notice that it has extremely narrow margins. In fact, those margins are 1/10 of an inch. Now, I don't know if anybody from Canada is here. So everything that I'm going to see is in inches. However, it also does centimeters as well. So if you're from Canada and you use the metric system, don't worry about it. It'll show you your preferred measurements. But for me, it's going to be inches. And this is all 0.1, 0.1, 0.1. These are all of the margins. I believe it is, I forget the order in which it appears. We're going to have to look at the documentation. It doesn't matter because I'm going to set it to, I'm going to set it to 1/2 inch for 3 of them, so it'll be fine. I just don't remember which is bottom. I don't remember whether it's top, bottom, left, or right, or top, left, bottom, right. I don't remember the order. However, in the documentation, I do have the order specified in what the margins are. We're actually going to have to change this because no printer in the world is going to print on 0.1 inch margins. Well, it might at the top of the page, but it certainly isn't at the bottom of the page because the page is going to feed out of the printer. So we're going to set these margins to 0.5. So that is the left margin at 0.5 inches. Then we're going to set the next one to 0.5, and that will be the top margin. So it is left top, and then I believe right bottom. And we'll set the next margin to 0.5. That is my right margin. Now notice, we've already got a little problem here. I've got content now with this logo that is sticking off the edge of the page. So we're going to have to fix that. And then we're going to do the bottom margin. Now, for the most part, 1/2 inch even is iffy for the bottom margin for most printers. So we are going to go to 0.75 for a safety margin. So with that, that gives us, I think, about the smallest margins we can get away with. Now, technically, on most printers, I think you can get away with 0.25, 0.25 for the top and for the right. And so that helps a little bit, but 0.75 and at the very least 0.5 is going to be the minimum margin that you can have at the bottom for most conventional printers, because it's too close to the bottom of the page and it has to be fed out of the printer. So you got to be careful about your margins. I'm going to assume that we can use a 1/2 inch margin at the bottom. So it'll make our page mainly symmetric, but we'll get as much data onto the page as we can. It doesn't really matter because I'm not going to print this report. So I didn't really need to make these changes, but in most cases you are going to print the report. So you kind of got to make the changes. All right, this image URL, I'm going to click on it. And when I do, notice that it becomes bounded by these sizing handles. There are 3 others over here at the very end on the right-hand side. We can't see them. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to move this back over here so that it is now aligned with the edge. Now, one of the nice things about this, the reason that it has these grids on it, is that everything snaps to the grid. I would prefer a little smaller grid than what is on here, but this will be fine. At least it gives me some nice snapping. So when I move things, it snaps to this grid. So if I get close, it'll drop it in the grid where I want it dropped. So that'll make my design a little bit easier. Every time I click on any object, it will show me the sizing handles for that object. Always 8 sizing handles, whatever you click on. I'm not going to need this here. We're going to replace this with bands. So I'm just going to go ahead and delete it for right now. And now we can begin adding bands to the report. But before we do that, let's take a look at these existing objects. BP underscore report name, description, and logo URL. These are all system variables. Yes, you can use system variables in a report. And some system variables are built in. So this BP report name is the actual name of the report object that you created in Process Director. So I created this report object here, which is called KView. That's its name, and that's why we saw when we ran our preview the word KView at the very top of the report. Now, I don't have the BP logo URL set on this system, so it is not going to show me this image. I would actually have to manually put in an image just by inserting the image here, or I could change my BP logo URL inside Process Director. It is already 10:48, so we're not going to spend a whole bunch of time doing exterior stuff and configuring it manually. We'll take a look at some of my other reports and see what I did there for this. But for right now, just know that I don't have a BP logo URL, so my logo isn't going to show up in this report. I think most of you do use the logo URL, so for most of you, this will actually just work right out of the box. This is just me being lazy in the configuration of my system. At the basis of every report is the band, the data band. Now, there are other bands. I can have a page header, a page footer. For example, if I drag page footer in, it will appear at the very bottom of the screen. And inside that page footer, I can throw in some variables. Now, we already have these system variables up here at the top, and these are derived from Process Director. There are variables built into the system itself as system variables. And here are some internal variables in addition to the report name and description, that it is grabbing out of Process Director. So I have all of these variables from Process Director that are available to me in every report. These variables get passed to the report automatically from Process Director, and there are several of them. So you may find a lot of these useful in terms of just being able to, like in this case, the title and the description. I didn't put a description for this report, but had I, it would have showed up here as the report description. So those are useful and they exist, and it's good to know that they're there, but there are also system variables inside the reporting component itself, one of which is the page number. So I can actually just go ahead and grab the page number, and I can drop it right inside this band. Now, note it gives me two pieces of text. One is just a text box that says page number. Well, I don't really need that, so I'm going to get rid of it. The other one, however, you will notice is inside curly brackets. So much like Process Director, the reporting component itself uses curly brackets to specify what a system variable is. And in this case, it's the page number system variable. Now I'm going to expand it a little bit. I'm going to move it over here to the side. And now that I have it selected, I'd go back over here to properties and I can make some changes to it. So like right now it's in Arial 8-point font. I think that's probably a little small. Let's go to 10-point Arial and let's make it bold. And also let us set the horizontal alignment to the right because it is a number. So I always want the page number to just show up on the right, and as more digits show up, it will just be expanded to the left. So in this case, because I have it expanded to the right, it kind of, if I make it smaller, it actually sets it to the right and then moves it down to show as if it were two lines of text. Don't worry about that. I'll just make it big enough to fit in the page number, but do notice that it is now aligned to the left. I could align it to the right as well. I'm sorry, it's aligned to the right. I could align it to the left as well. I could align it to the center. So you do have some choices of alignment on all of these objects that are created. Now, this is also a text object. So let me realign it to the right real quick. This is also a text object. However, it gets its value from this system variable. So everything that we pull in from our data are all going to be system variables. So for my report, just to make a basic report, and we'll take a look at the other reports because it's already almost 11 o'clock. So we'll take a look at the pre-built reports to look at how I've configured some more advanced components here. But for now, I do need some data. I really just need two things to make a super basic report. Actually, I only need one thing. I need a data band. The data band is where my report is going to show all of the report data. And so this is the data. When I put a data band on the page, it's automatically going to pop open my data window for me to choose the data band or the data that needs to be associated with this data band. I can have multiple data bands on a report. Each data band will need to be associated with a specific data source. In this case, I've only got one, which is my report KView, so it makes my job a little bit easier. We're going to do the easy thing, but I should tell you that we can get super complex here. Now, if you are not a SQL person and you don't know how SQL works, a lot of this won't make sense to you. But for those of you who are, I can create my own new data source. I can then take existing data sources, create data relations between the different data sources, assuming I have primary and foreign keys that can be matched. And I can take process director data and data that is stored externally or a whole bunch of different external data. I can build my own data structure in the reporting component. So you should be aware that that is a capability that is available to you. You can make very, very complex reports. That's beyond the scope of what we really want to talk about, but know that you can do it. For now, all we really have to care about is that I set my report KView as the data source for this band. And once I do so and I click the OK button, it will say data band 1, data source, report KView. Great. So now what I can do is I can go to my dictionary and I can scroll back up here to my report KView and I can just pull in one of my fields. The first field I obviously want to pull in is the name. So I can just drop the name field in here. Now, as we saw earlier, I get both the text for the name and then I get the system variable that contains, or the text field that contains the system variable for the report knowledge view. And that's what I wanted to do because I'm going to need a little extra space here for my report KView name. Now, if I run this report, it's going to get a little ugly here. So we're going to set our report KView name there. Let's just make it larger just for general purposes. And let's look at what result I get just from doing this. So we'll go to our preview tab so that we can preview our report. So that text constantly shows up in every single row because that's what the data band does. It shows me all of the data that is going to go on every row in this band. So when I say row, what I'm referring to is a single row of data in the original data source. There's 1,000 of them. As you can see, right now this report is 61 pages long, and it shows me name in every row. Now, I certainly don't want that, and that's, of course, where the header comes in because I'm going to want the, well, I didn't want to do that. I fear, oh yes, I fear that I have failed to save my report. I have inadvertently closed it. And so having done so, I have lost all of the work that I have put into this report. So all of my changes have just gone out the window. Okay, fine. We're going to switch over to the pre-built report because at least I know that one is saved. So let's ignore all of the other bands. We'll have to talk about those in a little bit. And let's just go back to our data band. So what I've done for my report KView is I have added all of the data as we just saw a minute ago, but I've also added a header band to the report. So when you add a header band, it automatically places it in the proper place on the report. So on my other report, if I added a header and a data band, the header band would be immediately above my data band. Now I have some additional bands that I've added. We'll talk about them later. The nice thing is that whenever you go to the layout, or sorry, the insert, and you add a band, it will stick it into the report in the appropriate hierarchical location. So my title band will always go up here at the very top. And by the way, just so that we know, I did actually drop in an image here, a regular image. My footer band all the way over here at the bottom, my page footer band. So because I don't want the name, as we just saw, showing up in every row, I need to drop a header band onto this report so that I can, whenever I drag all of my data sources, or my data source fields onto the report. So in this case, it's the name, the path, and created by. Those are the only fields that I wanted to put on this report. Great, I can do that, and then I can drag the text boxes for name, folder path, and creator. I can drag those into the header band. And of course, once they're in the header band, I can go to the properties and I can say, okay, well, I want this to be 16 point bold and I want it aligned to the left. And I can go ahead and do all of the text property changes that I want to make here. And so basically my column headers are right up here at the very top. And of course, because we're on the grid, I can match each column header with the width of the field that column header is associated with. So you can see here I've selected both of them, and you can see that they're all the same size. As we do multi-select on here, all you have to do is just hit Shift and click. And well, I thought I had them all the same size. This one is actually a little smaller. This is not really lined up. This needs to be back to there, which means that my name is also misaligned. My data field is a little too large. So I'm going to need to move that back over to there so that all of my fields and my headers are now aligned so that I have proper column headers for reporting. The bands themselves have properties that you may or may not need to configure. By default, especially your data band, it should be configured to can grow, and it should be configured as enabled. If it's not enabled, you won't see it. And the can grow is important in that we're going to have 1,000 rows of data. So obviously, this particular height of this particular band is going to be way different with well, it's actually going to have, well, it's going to have 1,000 rows in each section. There's actually 2,000 rows of data that go into this data band. So we are going to have to tweak things a little bit there and ensure that the can grow is checked. By default, it should be checked. I think it's checked by default in every band. But down here, print on all pages for the header. Do you want the header at the top of every page? I do. So I want it checked. If you don't, you can uncheck it. So feel free to explore the properties of each of these items. So what we saw previously, we didn't have a header. We only saw the data band. Now there is a header. I mean, I suppose I can preview it, but we're also going to be seeing those group header bands, which we haven't talked about yet. But since I didn't save the previous report and I inadvertently closed it without saving, let's pretend that this doesn't exist. And now we have our report. Yes, I do note that each alternating line is a different color. We haven't gotten there yet. We'll get there in a few minutes. So we have our headers. They work. We have our report data. It's all properly aligned. Great. So at this point is where I would want to say, all right, fine. I have both process timelines and I have form instances, and I want to make a discrimination between those two. How am I going to do that? Well, this is where a group header band comes in, because what the group header band does is it allows me to divide my data band into separate groups. So in my case, what I want to do is I want to split up form instances and process timeline instances into their own groups. So I'll do that by putting in a group header band, but it does get a little bit tricky. So we're going to want to copy this, and we're going to want to paste it here so that we can all read it. What I need to do is I need to tell the group band how I want it to work. So and because this is a knowledge view, the object type is actually a number. I said 16 earlier. Form instances are number 15. So when you run a knowledge view and you run form instances and process timeline instances, in my case, I don't know what process timeline instances. I don't have to because I'm only running two types of objects, form and process timelines. So I can run a single if statement to look to see whether my report kview.object type, so this is the actual field, the object type field from the knowledge view, does it say 15? If it says 15, then I'm going to return form instances. Otherwise, I'm going to return process timeline instances. This is called an if statement. And an if statement allows me to make a comparison and then return a value if true and a value if false. The syntax for it, and I am going to go ahead and include the if statement is basically a system variable in the report. So I'm just going to type in if, well, I should probably type it all in caps so that it makes sense. And then I'm going to need a parentheses, and I've got to give it, actually, I'm going to need two parentheses because of the way the syntax works. So let me throw in another one. And so the first thing I have to do is put in the test to evaluate. So this can be any expression. In fact, I should probably call it expression to evaluate. In my case, we're just looking at the data and we're seeing whether it equals 15. And yes, the double equal signs are really important. So so that's what equals means in basically C# or any C-based language. So basically our expression is, and it's going to return true or false. So I need to have a true or false expression to evaluate. So in this case, look at the report kview data, look at the object type field for this row. Is it 15? If it does equal 15, then this expression returns true. So I should probably make this true or false expression to evaluate. Now my expression has to be in its own little set of parentheses. So now that it is inside the second set of parentheses, because the whole if statement is included in these parentheses. In fact, since this does parentheses matching, this is the bounds of my if statement. So what I need here is the value if true. In this case, it's text. And then I put in another comma, and what value should I show if it is false? So value if false. There we go. That's an if statement. And we have to build this inside the report generator. It's fairly easy to do because in the report designer, which is right there, when I drop in a piece of text, so let's just insert some text here. So I'll just create a text box. When I drop in that blank text box, it's automatically going to say, okay, what do you want to do What function do you want to run here? And I can type in the text for my if statement here. I can also, let's get rid of that. I can also go into functions. And is this a string, or I thought it was a logical function, not strings. Date, print state, programming shortcut. There it is, if. I can also just drag an if statement there, and it's going to want to, I don't need the text. I hate that it always wants to throw in that text, but it's going to kind of pre-write that if statement for me. So I can drag it in from over there, and then I can double click on it. And once again, it's going to open up the dictionary for that. And it's automatically going to open it up here to an expression. I can also go to system variable, which we'll do a little bit later. I can pick a data column, which we could do if we were actually putting in a data field in a data band. But for the most part, I have my expression, and it's kind of pre-written. And the grammar, of course, is if test true part, false part, and I can write my if statement here. Now, in this case, the if statement has to do this comparison with the number 15 because that's the enumerator for form instances. But once I have that if statement, what that says is, look, if this is object type 15, we're going to be grouping these things now. So if it's object type 15, I want you to put it in the form instances group. And if it is any other object, and I only have two types of objects, so that means it's automatically, it must be a process timeline instance. So I want you to say process timeline instances. So this is creating the two groups, one if true, one if false. Form instances, process timeline instances. So now when I run my report, that group is automatically going to show up here as form instances. And if I go to page 35, I will see the end of my form instances, and it will start my process timeline instances. And the process timeline instances will run from page 35 to page 70. So my 70 pages of data are now divided into process timeline instances. All right, but what have I done here with this 1,000 form instances? Well, it's a little trickier. Let's go back up here to system variables. There are two very important system variables. One is called line, and one is called line through. They do similar but slightly different things. The line, both of them maintain a count of data rows. So both line and line through give you the number of data rows. The difference is that if I have a group header and I throw in a group footer, when my data is grouped, the line system variable will reset itself automatically to 0 every time I hit a new group. The line through system variable will simply maintain a count of every row, irrespective of whether there are groups or not. It will not reset itself, and it will always show me the total number of rows. So with these two system variables, line, which resets itself in every group, and line through, which gives me a total number of lines, I can now perform a little trickery. Now, I need to place these system variables in two places. I need to place them in both of them, line and line through, both need to go into the data band. Now, I don't want to show them in the data band, but they do need to be in there. And so what I've done is I've put these two text boxes in there, and notice you can't see what their values are. I don't know what their values are. I don't know which one is which. So I'm going to double click on it. And when I do, it tells me that this is my line system variable. So when it opens up the dictionary dialog box for the dictionary tab, when I double click on it, it just automatically moves over to the system variable tab of the dialog box, and it automatically selects line for me, so I always know which one it is. So I'm going to presume that if I double click on this, it will be my line through. I can't see anything, and the reason that I can't see anything is because over here on the Properties tab, the very top where it says Text Brush, I selected Empty. It's kind of unwieldy language, it seems like to me, but empty it is. I want it to be transparent. I think that would be a better word, but I think it's probably too long a word to fit into this nicely formatted UI here. So I could have this show up, my text could show up as solid, as a hatch, as a gradient, as a glare, as glass. I don't want any of that. I just don't want it to show up at all. So I'm going to set this text brush to empty. And by doing so, what that means is I don't actually see the text for my line or my line through system variables, but they're there and they need to be inside the data band, because as the data band iterates through the data, as we reset to a new group and we regenerate a count in the line system variable for the group, I want to be able to keep all of these things inside the data, but I don't want to show them there. But I do want to show them somewhere, and where I want to show them is in the group footer band. So in the group footer band, I've concatenated a couple of different system variables to create a line of text. Let's copy it from here and let's run it back over here to see what I did. So I used the line system variable. This is just going to show me the value of the line system variable. So I'm at the very bottom of a group. So it should show me the total number of rows that it encountered in that group and print it out. Then I've added a space, and then I've added a very similar if statement. Check the object type. If it's 15, then I want you to print out form instances. If it is anything else, I want you to print out process timeline instances. So what I should see at the very bottom of my report, 1,000 form instances. I set the very bottom of my report, at the very bottom of my group. It should say either 1,000 form instances or alternatively 1,000 process timeline instances. Similarly, I've done something, well, I keep going to the wrong thing. Similarly, I've done something at the very bottom. I have a footer band. So here's my header band. That always goes at the very top of the report itself. Then I have my group header, which splits my data band into different groups. And I've got my group footer. So I've got text that appears at the very top of the group header, which I've specified with the if statement. At the bottom of the group footer, I've got the line system variable, and then I'm specifying again via the if statement whether I am showing form instances or process timeline instances. And then I have a footer band, which goes at the very bottom of the report. So whenever the last data row prints out and the last group footer band prints out, then just as my header band prints out at the very top of the report before anything else, at the very bottom of the report, my footer band uses my line through system variable. And in this case, I've built a text that uses the line through system variable and a space and object instances to show me my total number of object instances, which in this case should be 2,000 object instances when my report runs. So now I've got a report that shows me everything that I need to see. I've put my page footer band, so it'll show me the page number at the bottom of every page. The report name and report description will appear at the top. I've dropped in a logo here so that it knows what my logo is. I've got a header band, group header, data, group footer, and then a footer band. So what I get when I preview my report is 2,000 rows of data in my report. I did forget one thing. Again, I've got alternating colors in my report bands. I probably should talk about that real quick. Did I close I did close the report. Happily, it is saved in its final format, so I haven't lost another 45 minutes of data. All right, so if we go to our data band and we go to appearance, there is an odd style and an even style appearance property. Now, we actually have some built-in styles that we created here at BP Logix, and it's called BP Odd Row and BP Even Row. So the odd style is the style in which I want to display odd numbered rows of my data. And the even style, of course, is for even number rows. Now, I've picked the BP styles that we've built in with the light blue and white background. There are, as you can see, other styles. There is a built-in odd row style. There's a built-in even row style. There's several different styles. So in addition to the BP styles, there are these styles that are built into the report generator itself. Technically, you could also build some different styles, but for right now, we'll just go with the defaults. And that's what I've done. I've just gone and set the odd and even styles for these rows. So once again, we'll preview it. My problem is I hit preview and I forget that preview is not a separate window. It is the same window. So there we go. If we go down to page 35 again, so we see our header, our group header, and then we'll go to 35. And on page 35, we see our group footer, 1,000 form instances. We now see our next group header for our process timeline instances. And if we go to page 70, then we see, again, 1,000 process timeline instances is our group footer. And then our report footer shows us our 2,000 object instances in the report footer. And at the very bottom of our page footer, we can see that we are on page 70. So we've generated a 70-page report. Now, so far we've talked about the knowledge view report. In most circumstances, the data source report is very similar in terms of the designer. The big difference is in terms of the data. But since we're already talking about the designer, let's look at the design first. Now, in this particular case, my data is a little bit different. So I'm going to be able to do things a little bit differently. So let's look. Everything else about this report is exactly the same. The only difference is the data source. However, in the data source itself, if we go back and we look, and there is my training report data. If we look at the object type, that has the little ABC icon. That means that it is already a text field. It already says either form instance or I don't remember whether it says process timeline instance or timeline instance, but it actually says it in text. When I exported my knowledge view into a CSV file and then saved that as an Excel file and imported it into my system, Process Director took the text for form instance and process timeline instance and saved the text as part of the export. It did not save the enum number of 15 for form instances, and I think it's like 36 or something for process timeline instances. whatever it is, it didn't save it that way. It just exported the text. So what that means is I actually have different text for each of these different types of objects. I've got, oh, already contains a definition for training report data source. Okay, we'll have to go back and take a look at what that is. But that's probably on my data source tab, which we're going to go look at anyway. So we'll look at that in a second. So I don't really have to do that if statement. I've already got the object type. I think it says either form instance or timeline instance. All I've done, since instance ends with an E and it can be pluralized simply by adding an S, all I've done is simply added an S to the end of that system variable. So it is going to return either form instance, then I'm going to add an S, which will convert it to instances, and the same thing for process timeline instances. And so there are some minor differences between pulling stuff out of an exported Excel file, where it actually exports the text rather than the ID number or the enumerator number of forms and process timelines. But other than that, everything is exactly the same in terms of the design of my report. Where it is different, of course, is the data source. Because I'm not using a knowledge view. I'm actually using a data source. Now, I have a data source. It is called, I believe it's the internal views for report samples. Now, I don't remember the data source that I used to grab this. Oh, I can't remember which one it was. It may be report data. Is it report data? No, it is not report data. I don't remember which data source I used. Essentially, you pick a data source, and what was that one for internal views for report samples? Let me add that data source. Nope, again, not the right data source. So I'm going to remove that data source. I don't remember which one it was. Report data? There's two report datas. Okay, it's the second report data. I have way too many data sources with the same name on this system. I should really go back and fix that because it makes it very difficult for me to figure out what I'm doing. Oh, I blew that up. So let's go back and do it again. At least we know it was report data, and it was the second report data. And we can add our data source. Actually, you know what? I want to just go ahead and regenerate because I've broken it and I just want to regenerate because I'm pulling it from a data source. It just happens to be a data source that only looks at these two tables. If I picked the internal user database data source, it would show me these as well as 100 others, but I've got a lot of external data sources. So let's just use this one. It actually has two tables in it. One because of a mistake I made yesterday when I imported the data with the wrong tab on the Excel spreadsheet. So it brought it in as report KView. It should have been report underscore data. So I had to re-import to get my report underscore data. Now, as is, this doesn't look very impressive. I just pick the table I want. It gets added to my report and, you know, it works. However, with the Show Advanced SQL checkbox, I can do a lot more. When you turn on Show Advanced SQL, you can actually go in and you can begin writing whatever SQL statement you need to write or stored procedure, whatever it is, as long as it's accessible for that object. In this case, this just happens to be a table. So I would generally write a select statement, but you can do all of the concatenation that you want and all of the grouping that you want, and you can do it right here directly from SQL. So whenever you pull a knowledge view in, whatever that knowledge view's configuration is, well, that's what you get. That's what you have to live with. When you use a data source, you can begin manipulating that data source. So let's say you just want to pull in reports about a single form definition. Okay, great. Create a SQL view for that form definition. And when you create that SQL view, as long as it is part of your internal user database, since I'm here and I may have already messed this all up, let's just go and grab my internal user DB data source, right? Let me add that data source to it. Okay, that's everything that I have in the internal user database, including the training data that we just looked at. Here's my report K view, and there's my training report data. Everything is available here. All of my city data, all of the stuff that I've done, and all of the webinars, all of that data is all available to me. And when I hit that Show Advanced SQL, now I can take these basic things like BP process task, right? That's a view that's just built into Process Director. And certainly, as a default, it just wants to select star from BP process task. If you are a SQL person and you know SQL, you can now go and pull out just specific data. You can write as complex a SQL statement as you need to pull this data out of the view for process tasks or the view for form instances, whatever it may be. And you can create very customized SQL statements to pull in just the data that you want. Now, in my particular case, I only want this training report data. So that should be fine. That's the only data source that I have on this report. So when I design the report, I'm not sure why it isn't previewing, especially since it previewed yesterday, although I was doing a little monkeying around here and there. Okay, the type reports report already contains a definition. For training report data source, what does that mean? So let me look at my report data. There is my training report data. And so I'm not sure where it's getting mixed up. So we're just going to go back. We're going to update it again. Because yesterday, believe me, when I changed all the data, I was running both reports. I don't really have any business objects data sources. I've got BP process here. I'm not sure why. And there's my training report data. So I'm not sure what I have done since yesterday to mess this up. This is most disturbing. I wonder if it's just something in preview. Because I was using view report yesterday. And it does exactly what I expect. All right, I'm not sure what it is I've done that's messed up the preview. So that's a little disturbing, but this is my actual data source report where it has all of my objects. Again, it's 70 pages long because it is exactly the same data. So we go to page 35 and there's my data. So it looks exactly the same. There's no reason to deliver any more manful thwacks to this dead equine. I just don't know why it's not working in the designer, but it is working in the view report. Something is wonky somewhere and I need to fix it. I'd have to look at it, and I'm not going to troubleshoot it here. I do have a data source inside the report itself that I don't want, so I'm probably going to have to delete that data source. Not sure how it got there, but doesn't prevent the report from actually generating outside of the report designer. So who cares? It works. And there's my data source report. So there are some differences between the two report types. The data source report gives you a lot more flexibility. Also, because you're pulling it from SQL itself, it's a little faster. Okay, let's talk about a tab we haven't talked about, and that is the Variables tab. And to do so, we're actually going to go to a different report. We're going to go to this one. Actually, it's not a different report. It's literally exactly the same report, but it is the same report run on the basis of some variables. Now, if we open this report, we've already seen this report. It already looks fine. There's no difference in this report as is. Mainly that's because I haven't messed with the UI yet, but I'm about to. So here's my data source report showing me the exact same data. Let's do something kind of funky with this. Let's go into this form and let's run this form. This is just a regular process director form. And wait, it's showing me my report. And because we're not going to see much of a difference here, I just wanted you to note that there are 70 pages to this report. But there is this field up here called object type. Now, this is a field on the form itself. And I'm just going to type in the word time and hit tab. And now I have a 35-page report, not a 70-page report. And instead of starting with form instances, it's showing me timeline instances. Now it's going to show me 1,000 of them. So if I go to page 35, it's going to show me that there are 1,000 timeline instances, but also 1,000 object instances. Somehow, by typing in the word time, or if I do it again, I can just type in the word form, and it'll regenerate, and it'll only show me form instances. I am passing a form value to this report. How am I doing that? Well, that is controlled by a tab on the report called the Variables tab. I can create my own variables in a report. And based on those variables, I can return different objects for that report. Again, because I'm using a data source report, and because I can go in and I can manipulate the data in the data source via SQL, gives me the ability to do a couple of things like create a variable, which in this case I have called object type. It is a string variable. Now I have a couple of different choices about how I want this variable to work. In this particular case, I am passing this variable from a form, from an external form, as we just saw. And so I need to know what that value is that I am passing to it. We'll come back to that. Now, I do have another choice. I don't have to fill this in. I mean, I can leave it here, but I can also make this happen in the report itself. I can have the report prompt for a value, and I can give a prompt text that I want to tell the user what they should enter. We'll take a look at that in a little bit. But because I'm using this variable, which if you can't see it, it's QS underscore OBJ. So it's my object query string. That's what that nomenclature means, at least to me. So I've got this object type, basically, that I'm passing. And it's not even the full object type. It's really just some text that I am going to use to match against the object type. Now, as I said, this is a data source report. And because it's a data source report, I can write some custom SQL. And again, in the interests of making this legible to you, we'll just bring it over here and paste it. So here's my SQL statement. Select star from training report data, which that was the base SQL statement right there that just brought back all of the data, or that brought back all of the data. Now I need to add a where clause. I want to make this a little more precise. So I've added a where clause, and I want to look at the object type field, and I want to set up where the object type field is like, and then a single quote, which means I got some text to send you. And then I've got some text. I didn't want to do that. Then I've got some text inside the percent wildcards in SQL, which means this could be any number of letters or numbers. And here's my a variable. Now, notice I've got the SQL encoding because got to use SQL encoding to make it SQL safe. But I've got this var called object type. Okay, that was the var that we created here on the variables tab. It's called object type. So what I'm saying is I want to see all of the items in training report data where the object type is like, which means I want you to do a loose kind of fuzzy match. So if I type in the word form there, knowing that the value is form instance, it's going to pull back all of my form instance. If I put in time or Tim or line or eline, doesn't matter. It's going to pull back timeline instances. Now, of course, if I type in instance, it should pull back everything. It should pull back all 2,000 rows because it's just doing this real loose text matching. And the cool thing about this is because I'm using the like and the little percent sign wildcards outside of the system variable that I've created, if I don't put in anything, if it's blank, it'll just return all the records because basically a blank is treated as a match. And so if there's no value in object type, then basically it's an empty string and they'll just return everything back to me from SQL Server. So I'll get all 2,000 of my rows. So it's really pretty cool. Now, where does this come from? Now that requires that we go back and look at our form. And on our form, if we go into the design view of the form is pretty simple. It basically has a little text here at the top that says object type. It has a field. This field is named object type. And then it just has a show report control. Yes, there is a show report control that will enable you to embed a report onto a form. If you can connect to my webinar on advanced UI design, where we use forms as UI objects, if I can show a report on a form, that must mean that I can make forms do some pretty cool stuff. You can, and I do want to show this report, but I want to be able to limit what I see using that object type field. So for a report, there is a query string parms property. It's exactly the same as a knowledge view control that you place on a form, and it does the exact same thing. What I've done is I just say, okay, QS underscore object equals the value of whatever in the object type field. QS underscore object is now magically a variable. Just by writing this text, I have created a variable called QS OBJ or QS underscore OBJ. And because I have magically created that variable, if we go back and look at my data source report and we look at the object type var, it has the default value, which is QS underscore object, as we saw earlier. In other words, I am magically just making a variable on the form that I've decided to call QS underscore OBJ. So it's now a thing. It's a real thing. And I can go into a report like this and say, okay, well, I have set a var called QS underscore OBJ. So whatever that value is, I want you to place that in the report. And so whenever I run my report form, it just does that pass through as we saw earlier. And since we're here, I did want to run the form and we'll type form and it should regen because initially it's empty. So it gives me all the records back. So I have 35 pages. So it should be form instance or timeline instance. So if I type in Insta, it should go back and give me all 2000 rows because it's just doing that loose text match. And there we go, 70 pages of data. So I've got all my 2000 rows there. So I have this very loose text matching simply because I created that query string var on the fly. I can now use that query string var in the report itself to just pass whatever the value of QS underscore object is and to run my report. Now, that's one way of doing it. I can also add this to the report itself. I can turn on the prompt and I can set my prompt text wow. I don't know why I'm doing this in all caps. But now I've got a prompt text and a prompt, and I'm going to go ahead and update my report, go back here. And now, if I actually run the report itself, because I have that prompt and that prompt text, in the report itself, at the very, very top, it says, because I can't spell or type more precisely, retire part of the object type's name. So I am going to retire time. And there is a run button. So I'm going to go ahead and hit the run button. And that will regenerate my report. And because I have typed in time, it is now returning timeline instances. It's 35 pages long. So we know that it is only returning the 1000 timeline instances that are included in this data. So with the use of variables, and I could have multiple variables, by the way. For example, well, I would have to rewrite my SQL statement, but I could search for specific customer numbers. There's not a lot of variation in this data. Customer number is really the only variation, although there are some names. So I could search for part of a particular name. I could add multiple variables to a report. And if I add multiple variables, as long as my SQL statement takes count of those variables, then I can basically build a report that requires multiple variables to be entered to run, and I can prompt the user to run them when the report generates. So even though I did it inside this report form by adding a show report control and then passing the variable through, I really only did that to show you that it was possible to do that, that is a thing that exists in Process Director. I think in most cases, the more common thing would be not to pass a variable in from a form, but to actually prompt the user on the report itself so that in this particular case, because of the way I have written the SQL statement with that like, and I'm doing that loosey-goosey text matching. And so if I don't add a value, it returns everything. What this does is it gives me the ability to create a report that has its own variables that I can start typing things in and hit run, and I can put in one or more parameters. And if I use that same like feature of SQL Server, and I'm just doing that loose text matching, the more filters I put in, the fewer rows my report would return and the more specific it would be. So the advanced reporting component gives you a heck of a lot of flexibility when it comes to writing reports and to having those reports show up in a more attractive format than the regular knowledge view, plus gives you access to any data that you can access from anywhere. So if you have a database and you have Process Director and you've bought Crystal Reports, technically you don't need Crystal Reports because you've already got an advanced reporting component in Process Director. I'm not, by the way, recommending that if you have bought Crystal Reports that you should run out and get rid of it. That's not a recommendation. That was a joke. However, it is kind of true that Process Director gives you access to, with the advanced reporting component, a level of reporting that is very sophisticated and that brings you far outside of just the reporting knowledge use can do from data inside Process Director. Well, I did take up the full 2 hours. Well, I guess there's a couple of minutes left, but not enough as to make any difference. Have a great week. We will look forward to speaking to you again next week. Until then, so long.